Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MLS Now podcast. I'm your host, Russell. You can find me on social media at Mr. Danger Russ, but more importantly, you can find the podcast on social media at MLS Now Podcast. Joining us today, we have, of course, the OG, the original at MLS Now Podcast. We have David. David, hello, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? I am running on La Quinta Wi-Fi. Shout out to La Quinta Hotels. Love being here. And if you can see, the Wi-Fi
Not
is at
sponsored.
99%. Soon
Not
to be
sponsored by La
sponsored. I'll
Quinta.
make sure to talk to reception tomorrow morning.
All right. Well, and we'll let you know if we become sponsored by La Quinta, but for now, not sponsored. But we could be. I don't know. I don't know who I would want to be sponsored by, which is why, of course, I'm going to take it to Bryce, who you can find on social media at bleslie19. Bryce, if we were going to be sponsored, who would you want us to be sponsored by and why?
Well, I have my Yeti cup tonight, so I guess I'll go with Yeti. But besides that, I have no sponsorship ideas, so we'll have to go to the drawing board outside of this.
All right. Well, keep those sponsorship ideas in mind, Bryce. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, so don't keep them front of mind. But of course, we have the last person to join us here tonight, making his second appearance, getting very close to being cap tied here on the podcast. We have Bo, who you can find also under the MLS Now podcast handle. He is on social media though. Bo, you have a social media now. You texted me. You told me it exists. Please feel free to drop that handle if you so choose.
Yeah, so it's a MLS Gamut. I'm on Blue Sky because Twitter doesn't want to actually link the articles that I'm writing to my website. So I was like, well, it's dying anyway, so we'll just go Blue Sky. But yeah, so MLS Gamut, as in like we run the gamut of all things MLS, that kind of thing.
And now I can't help but notice your website is not currently a sponsor of the MLS Now podcast. So I'll put you in touch with David after this so that you can officially sponsor the podcast.
Okay, maybe he can get me in touch with the receptionist at we'll get all that figured out.
I appreciate your willingness to work with my people on this one. Your flexibility is phenomenal.
Anything for you.
Thanks. Well, hey, look, I'll tell you what, anything for me might be the truth of this podcast, but it's, not anything for the fan of a Columbus Crew team right now. Bo's got a whole bunch of Columbus Crew kits behind him. I think that's got to take the headline of the day. Breaking news as of like 8 hours ago when we're recording this, Cucho Hernandez is leaving the Columbus Crew for a La Liga team, Real Betis. Now, I have a question for you, Bo, and I've got a question for you, David. And I guess I sort of have the question for Bryce, who never really chimed in on this in the Twitter group chat. When someone leaves MLS and they go to, say, Real Betis, are they leaving for Real Betis or are they leaving for La Liga? Like, what's the sell there? Because you can say, oh, you're a star in MLS, or maybe you're just like another player for Real Betis, or maybe you're just like, a player on a team that even if they're sitting in ninth right now, right? Like they're not winning La Liga, but is that what they're going for though? They want to play in La Liga. It doesn't matter for what team. They could play for the bottom team in that league and it's still they're playing in the league. I'm interested in hearing everyone's thoughts. I'm going to throw it straight back to you, Bo. We're putting you on the hot seat.
All right, nice and toasty from the beginning. I like it. I think that it's a little bit of both. I think the thing is, if by going to a Real Betis, it's putting you on a stage. First of all, you get to play at, you get to play at Real Madrid, at Barcelona. I mean, they're about like some pretty cool opportunities. But I think the big thing too is that the European clubs just scout other European teams better. So it's an easier launch pad to go from, say, Real Betis to a Champions League club than it is to go from the Columbus Crew straight to a Champions League club. So I think that it's a little bit of both. Yeah, you are going to Real Betis and La Liga, but in reality, I think a guy who is as good as Cucho Hernandez is, that this is really just a springboard for hopefully something even better.
Quite possible. Quite possible. I think that's a good shout, though, as well, that European teams just scout other European teams better. Because to an extent, I mean, let's look at where some of the big departures have been to, like John Duran, not, not including him, right? Like most of these other departures that are going to big Premier League teams tend to either go into the loan army, or you get guys like Brenner who went to Udinese in Serie A. You have, Cucho going to apparently Real Betis, not Real Betis, but I'll I'll give my pronunciation better luck next time on that one. I appreciate Bo for letting me know the actual proper pronunciation there.
No
Good
idea if
with
that's actually right. That's just the living in Texas. That's how I would have said it. But yeah.
Well, you know what? We have a 50-50 shot. Maybe we don't have a 50-50 shot. I don't know. But potentially we have a right answer there. David, I'm curious in your hot take on this one, though, because you always have something very insightful to say, but you also have something very spicy to say on this. You know, I'll preface it by saying this. Cucho leaving the league, what are your thoughts on that for the future of the league? Exclude the player for a second, because Cucho is definitely a young, in prime player. He's the type of guy you would want to have in the league. So what kind of look is it for the league that he's going to Real Betis? And then follow up, just your thoughts on, is a player leaving to go to a league, or are they leaving for a team?
First of all, I think we are ignoring the obvious, right? Chucho clearly wanted to play with Anthony. Um, who doesn't want to play with Anthony? Who doesn't want to be next to the GOAT? That was the obvious answer. I'm really surprised you guys missed it. Um, as to him going to Real Betis, it's a plus for the league. We talked about this before, right? PT tried it. PT Martinez, Ezequiel Barco tried it. It failed tremendously, right? Um, Evander, I know he wants to go back to Europe. There's a lot of players that want to make that jump, and MLS not it hasn't had a hard time because Tati Castellano went up there, right? Almiron was with Newcastle, et cetera, et cetera. But we haven't had a significant one in a couple of years, and Chucho doing that again kind of rings the bell to those young players in South America. Now I know Columbus didn't get Chucho from South America; they got him already from Watford, if I'm not mistaken, right? Um, and now he's going back to Europe. But this kind of helps ring the bell in South America. Like, hey, we can go to MLS. That's a trampoline to go to Europe, and Real Betis can play a conference league championship. You never know what they can do. They've been getting people, they've been getting players. I from my side, I see it as good. Chucho not being in the league, of course, right? Great player, amazing career, great goals. Columbus is truly going to miss him, but he helps the league. It really does, especially with this young players that are looking for a way to get to Europe. And now you know that it's not only in South America, not only in Argentina, not only in Brazil. There's another league where other teams are watching for, and other teams are willing to come and get you and scout you and take you to Europe. And I think it helps the league in the long run.
David, I tend to agree with you for the record. I think it does help to show MLSs, hey, we're willing to send players, even if they're our star player, right? Even if they are the key to our attack, one of the best strikers in the league, we are willing to send them to Europe when Europe comes calling. It doesn't have to be Real Madrid. It can be it could be a Watford, it could be a Real Betis, it could be a Belgian team, a Bundesliga team. It could be anyone, right? When someone comes calling and it's a reasonable jump to a top league, we're willing to let you go, which I think that's nice. Bryce, I don't know if you saw this. It was reported by Tom Boggart. The deal is something in the neighborhood of $16 million plus add-ons, and then there is a sell-on fee there. Cucho being 25 years old, I think it's very reasonable that there would be an additional sale at some point, so they'll likely see something from a sell-on fee. We don't know a percentage there. I'm gonna throw this one to you first before getting your thoughts on the move overall. Is 16 million the right number? Should it have been higher? Do you think it should have been, was this great negotiating on them? Like, what are your thoughts on the 16 million first and foremost?
Um, I think it's fair. I think Cucho could go for a little bit more if there was, a market for him, like multiple teams going after him. And that could have been the case. We don't, you teams are always talking to agents and other teams about, a list of players always. So it's always hard to know that short list. It seems like this really developed late. I know Tom earlier said like the last like 48 hours it really picked up, and today is when they really hit the stages that they felt good enough to come out to the public about it. It feels fair. It's a club record. It's probably, I mean, if it's 16 up front, then it's probably like top 3 to 4 in the league history of coming out. So no, Almiron was like in like the 19 up front. We have like Duran went for around that number as well. Almada recently went for that number, so he's like in that top 5 departure. Like goal scorers are going for premium nowadays, so maybe could have went for a little bit more, but I think it's a fair number on that. And yeah, I like the move. When I was going to approach the move, I was going to go with similar avenue as Bo did. Not too many clubs are scouting in MLS at the top level. Um, we've always talked about this interleague transfer coming in, where they said maybe now like the LAs, the Chicagos, the Atlantas, the Ohio teams are now maybe going to buy within the league. Just as similar, we see the Bayern Munich's, the PSGs. It's easiest to scout the league that you're currently in. So they're taking from the best teams: Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico. They're taking from the Sevillas, the Real Betis's, Gironas. So like it's a lot easier to scout opponents that you're playing multiple times a year. You're scouting against them, so the market's there. And Real Betis, they're 10th in La Liga right now, only 3 points away from a Europa League qualifier. It's a great opportunity for him to go there in the second half of this season as well. Coming off of a short off season, but he'll be there fresh, and he's 25. Similar when Miguel Almiron left, he was like 24, 25 to a relegation fighting Newcastle at the time, and eventually became their first Champions League goal scorer in like 3-4 decades. So like, who knows the impact that Cucho can make, and he could always come back when he's in that 30-31 range. I know a lot of people are, that argument we had in the group chat today, is he going for the league? I think he's just going for the opportunity to get back in Europe and really prove himself. When he was at Watford, he was relegation side, was played more as a winger, so now he can maybe go back in that goal scoring opportunity and really prove himself, because he's just entering his prime, and he's been a dominant threat in this league for 3 years.
I think one follow-up thought I have on this price, it's winter right now. If this was summer, maybe Cucho goes for like 5, maybe 6 million more, because more teams are looking to buy in the summer. The purse strings are a little bit looser. I mean, barring sides like, say, Manchester City, who can spend 220 million in the winter window and be completely fine with that. Most teams historically don't tend to spend huge sums of money in the winter. So I do wonder if that has something to do with it. I'll throw it back to David, and I'll just say, David, hey, thoughts on this, comments, concerns?
Are we surprised how fast Columbus Crew said yes to Real Betis?
I don't no, maybe.
His contract was almost up. They're doing the player right. It's a good price.
Reason I ask is I know Tigres was after him, right? And that was a negotiation going on. And I think it caught my attention a bit just because I think Chucho probably told administration, right, I want Europe. If an opportunity comes from Europe, and say yes right away. But then again, like Bryce mentioned, 16 million plus some percentage there can be big for Columbus Crew. But I know the offseason there's still some left. But Bo, where does this leave the Crew? Like now they got to go heavily after someone in the offseason. They got to, if they're not yet scouting, they got to start their scouting for a new striker, either within the league, which I doubt they're going to look within the league, or go to Latin America, or go again back to Europe.
It's a really good question. First of all, the Columbus Crew are actually a well-run organization, so I have no doubts that they have had contingency plans for this, and that they have a board and a list of names on it. So I would not, similar to whenever Lucas Zelarayan left, they were, as soon as that started to pop up, they immediately started working with Diego Rossi. So I think that if anyone should get the benefit of the doubt, it should be the Crew. But where does it leave them? Um, I am a Cucho Hernandez fanboy. I will be totally honest. In my opinion, looking at a lot of the advanced stats and everything else, Cucho Hernandez should have been MVP of the league last year. It was not. It should not have been Messi. Messi was good when he played, but he was not. Did not play enough minutes, in my opinion. Cucho Hernandez was definitely MVP of the league. And so, I mean, this was a guy who is in. There's a if any listeners tend to, I like to look into stats because I like to have numbers to back up my opinions. American Soccer Analysis has a wonderful tool called Goals Added, and it basically looks at every single decision you make on the field, on and off the ball, and actually how it helps. Cucho Hernandez was top 5 in the league in dribbling, passing, shooting. He was the third best player in the league this year. First best last year. Even going to FB Ref, I mean, this guy's 99th percentile in shots, assists, expected goals, passes attempted, progressive passes, successful take-ons. I mean, and not only that, but also even his tackles, interceptions, and blocks are up in the 90th percentile. I mean, this guy is an elite player off and on the ball. And so where does it leave them? I think it leaves them a huge hole because Cucho Hernandez, as we saw in the MLS Cup final, I mean, the guy's a game winner. The guy single-handedly wins you games. I believe he had, looking at the numbers, he had 8 match-winning goals last season. I mean, that's a difference of 16 points right there, without him. Now, that's assuming they're putting someone in. But, I mean, the guy's a match winner. And I think that of all the people in MLS, even more so than Messi, which I think he's going to be the hardest one to replace just because of what you're getting from him and how good he is at every aspect of the game.
I think it would be very challenging to argue that Cucho isn't a top player in the league. What I want to ask, though, is we've seen Columbus hit on so many players, right? Like they hit on Cucho, they've hit on Diego Rossi, they had hit previously on Zelarayan. They get players like, Yaya Boa, right? Who they come from, other teams or other spots in the league. And it's just like, oh, yeah, here's this guy. He wasn't like a big name or anything for this other team. And then it's like they can go get seemingly any one of these guys and they bring them in. And all of a sudden it's like, dang, this player's really good. Like, where'd they find this guy? And so I wonder, whatever Columbus is doing, either it's their scouting is really good or, Wilfred Nancy is just that incredible of a coach that the players are always more than the sum of their parts. I wonder then, and I'll throw it to our newest joiner, Gavin, to say, are you worried about trying to replace this hole, or do you think it's just going to be business as usual for Columbus? Like they're going to take this money and say, thank you very much, and we're going to spend even more on the next guy, and they're going to be just as good, maybe better.
Honestly, I've been thinking throughout this off season that I don't know. I've had a weird feeling about Columbus that there's going to be a slight regression. They've been doing so well these past few years. They won MLS Cup. They got to the finals last year of was it CONCACAF Champions Cup final? Where did they get to the final of last year?
Leagues Cup they won.
Leagues Cup. They won. That's right. Thank you, Bryce, for fact checking me on that. And so I don't know. I feel like there's a regression was coming, and especially in a salary cap league, like you're gonna lose players. Essentially, you're not gonna be able to pay them what they want. And so, am I worried? Yes, I'm worried they're not going to be able to replace him because he was probably the best striker in the league. I'm sure you guys have already talked about that. And just for somebody to come in and be replaced of that high caliber and just fit into the system and everything works smoothly, it's a really hard thing to find. And so even if your scouting is good, so many different factors that are out of the team's control could go wrong that it's honestly a crapshoot sometimes with transfers. And even though they've been good at it, it's going to be really, really hard to replace Cucho Hernandez. I think it's a big loss for Columbus.
Yeah, I look at the end of the day, and I don't want to wax lyrical too much longer, so I'll throw my last take and then I'll leave it for anyone else who wants to comment on it. But at the end of the day, losing Cucho is a big loss for a league. It's good, I think, from a personal accomplishment and personal goals standpoint for Cucho. He's getting back into a Big Five European league. He's going to do phenomenal things in Europe. I mean, it's going to be exciting, I guess, to watch him now that he's not playing against Cincinnati anymore. But I mean, look, it is what it is. MLS is going to not beat the Big Five leagues in terms of appeal. So I think for now you take the win when you can get it. You're getting money for the player. You're getting, $5-6 million in profit over what you bought him for. Now you just kind of have to say, all right, it was nice while it lasted. We move on. We'll figure it out. So, and Columbus has not, unfortunately, again, coming from a Cincinnati fan, but Columbus has not given us any reason to think that they can't effectively replace him.
Yeah, I know that the European window closed today in some parts of Europe, and then other parts throughout the country close throughout the week. Obviously, that's just for incoming players. Like Columbus bought Cucho, and he was a winger for a relegation side in Watford. So who knows that the type of striker they're going to come in to replace. I mean, going into the season, if they can't get someone immediately, it's not the end of the world if you're relying on Ramirez and Russell Rowe moving forward. Obviously, they're going to replace. Don't know how quick it's going to happen. Obviously, with visa process and all of that, don't think it's in before the start of CONCACAF Champions Cup and the start of MLS season. But the Real Betis side, I was looking at when we said Anthony's on there. I didn't realize, I forgot, like Johnny Cardoso's there, Hector Bellerin, Gio Lo Celso, Isco. So like there's I'm going to be tracking them in the second half of the year. They're really close to the top six in Spain, just sitting a few points out. So looking at like their transfer market setup, it seems like striker is like their biggest need. So if Cujo can plug and play there, that it's going to be a really fun side to watch. They gained a follower for the rest of the year, and I know they gained a lot more across this league.
With Chucho leaving, right? No matter the striker that comes in, does this make? Can you guys hear me? Does this make Rossi the number one player on the team to take over, to take the team, put the team on his back? Does this put additional pressure on him?
It shouldn't. I don't think Rossi is your guy who you need to rely on creating and winning all your opportunities. I don't think that's the position that he plays. He's going to be someone that he needs to build off of that nine. He needs to build off of that tip of the spear.
But look at the experience Rossi has, right? Won 2 MLS Cups already. He knows the league. As to, let's say, if they go for an outside striker, you will have to depend on Rossi at least for half of the season until that striker adapts to the league or adapts to the club.
Yeah, look, Rossi is certainly in a prime position for leadership. Definitely someone who you look at to maybe wear a captain armband to provide some mentorship to whoever they bring in if they need to bring in someone from outside the league. But I guess I think of it as mentally you can rely on Rossi. I don't know if goals scored and being the clinical finisher, you rely on Rossi.
So I think the system kind of needs to step up even more. They're a system team, and they had a star player who could, when the system wasn't working, step up for them and pull a rabbit out of the hat. And so in this instance, now that their main man is gone, and we'll see what they do replacement wise, The system's going to have to step up even more than it already has, and they're going to have to get goals from all over like they usually do. They just don't have that 20 goal a season striker anymore.
One thing I will say is, I think this is a good move for Cucho. As as a diehard MLS fan, I am, selfishly, I want him here because watching him every week truly was, just absolutely majestic. Um, but like what we talked about, that team's got Anthony, Isco, Bellerin, Lo Celso. There's some really good players in there. And looking at, their striker they've been rolling with right now is Victor Roque, who's on loan from Barcelona. And he's in, I think I had in 22 games, he had 4 goals. So not exactly lighting it up. And there's a $25 million purchase option on that. And so I think he's going to get a chance to go in there. And with the World Cup coming up next year, and he has always been good enough to play for the Colombia national team, but I think that the MLS bias comes in play there. And so, just like it or not, that just does exist, in certain parts of the world. And so I think this is a really good opportunity for him to potentially get into that World Cup squad, because I think he's good enough. This guy was the best striker on North America. I mean, there's a reason that Monterrey came sniffing around multiple times, because they realized this guy is amazing. And so it's actually kind of refreshing for some of our best players not to go to Liga MX for a change and actually go somewhere else. So excited about that. But again, like I said, very, very sad to see him go. But but the one bright side is that this is only a plus for Cucho.
Now, I think we're talking about players not going to Liga MX. Here's the system working as intended, as there's been news over the past week. You've had Joveljic from LA Galaxy go to Sporting Kansas City. You also had McGlynn from Philadelphia Union signing over with, I believe, who was it, Houston?
Yep.
And so, first of all, I'm going to be the first to throw my hand up and say, I didn't have either of these guys moving for cash trades, and I certainly didn't have them being numbers 1 and 2 in the league for moving for cash trades. That I thought those honors were going to belong to Acosta and Evander in one of those orders. And honestly, the money associated is much lower than what I was expecting to see with the actual system itself, right? Like, I thought this was going to be Evander moves from, say, Portland to, I don't know, let's say Cincinnati, for example, for like 15 million. That's the headline I thought I was going to see, not McGlynn for 2.5 million. And it's just like, what? Like, at what point, like, do you say, why don't we just like trade salary cap for this guy? Like, why don't we just send Gam to Philly? But maybe Philly needs the money. I don't know. I guess that's a nice side of this, is now Philly, they're not going to use much Gam anyways. So just do the player sale and take the cash.
What is Philly gonna do
But
with the money? They do nothing with the money. They suck with
they're
money.
gonna
They pretend they don't have
they're
money.
gonna invest it.
They pretend they're
They need to
broke all
run
the
their
time.
business.
Yeah.
They need to run their business.
They're gonna, instead of going out for a player, they're gonna go look for a 15-year-old guy and try to put him in the starting 11. It's like a horrible, horrible run right now. I feel so bad for them. Ben, I think, is a writer, right? I feel bad for Ben. It's so bad. They're not spending any money. There's no rumors of them going after anyone. Maybe I think there was one actually they went after. But what is their plan? Like, what is their plan? They don't have a plan other than just develop 15 and 16-year-old and just try to sell them for $1 million or $2 million and keep the money and just keep going that way for who knows how long.
Hey, fun question on the topic of Philly. Just before we go down this, I want to get a read on you guys real quick. Quick, either show of hands or you can jump in if you agree with the statement. Do you think Philadelphia has a better academy, or does Real Salt Lake have a better academy? Between two teams very academy reliant right now.
Philly.
It is the Philadelphia Union, and it's not even close.
Philly.
Agree.
Interesting. I saw someone linked the U.S. youth national team in, There's a lot of Real Salt Lake names in there. So maybe it's because we have the recency of seeing Philadelphia get all the academy players in there recently, but
I think we're all thinking Sullivan as soon as you mentioned Philadelphia.
Yeah, maybe it's just they're doing a better job of putting the names in front of us and saying this is an academy guy. But
no, I think there's a really good man. I'm blanking on it, so I'm so sorry. But there's a really good guy who does US MLS Academy scouting, and I think Philly has 6 or 7 of the top 20 players. I think RSL may have 1 or 2. Now I don't know. You know, the one thing you did say, U.S. youth. Not everyone in the academies is from the U.S. initially. You know, they may represent other countries, so there could be a bias there.
Potentially so. In fairness, I don't think that I associate Real Salt Lake as being a great international destination versus, say, Philadelphia. So maybe that contributes to it.
I'm not sure if
maybe I'm the problem.
I'm not sure if that was part of your agenda, though, Russell, to talk about today. But can we agree that what the union is doing is just wrong, though? Just trying to depend on the academy just every year, just depending on the academy, depending on the academy. You had a good coach, you let that coach go. Now what? Like, there's nothing left. Like, honestly, what is the hope for the Philadelphia Union right now?
The academy. The academy is the hope, David.
The academy, like, you can do both, right? Like, you can try to manage to do both. Have the academy, have a good roster. Of course, prompt those kids up to the starting 11 if they're good enough, and help the starting 11. But it's just, man, they just have this mentality where the academy is going to fix everything. No, the academy is not going to fix everything. You're not going to win championships with the academy. It's not going to happen.
When Philly went to hit on signings in the past, though, like the $1 to $3 million transfer fees, maybe free agents, like the Medunians, the Kai Wagner, Jake Glesnes, Jose Martinez, like they can hit on signings too, and they become great pieces. The issue is, they have to maybe recycle some of those guys now, and like Ernst Tanner, he really believes in himself. They haven't really done it yet, but the transfer window is open until April. That's the hopeful side of it. Maybe they can, get a few guys over the line there. I mean, they still have a decently exciting attacking duo up front. I mean, they produce. So we'll see. Obviously, it's change. They got their new manager in that's going to run the system that the front office wants. But
who was it that put in our text message? Get ready to learn Moneyball.
That was me. Yeah, I said, get ready to learn Moneyball, buddy.
With Philly, yeah, definitely.
I guess back on the moves though with Dan Jovelich and Jack McGlynn. It's funny because I know Bo's also in the Soccer Wise Discord. We've always talked about like what's this rule going to be called, and these two were battling to get across the line, and now it's the Jovelich rule, this new interleague transfer. People thought it was going to be the Lucho rule or the Evander rule, but the first move was Jovelich going for $4 million, and then McGlynn going for around over 2 with a 50% sell-on fee, I think it is, and then Philly's 50% then still has to get allocated to the New York clubs based off of, I guess, whenever the academy process was of claiming McGlynn. I like those kind of moves, and I think that's another reason why I was intended. Jovelich, he was on a U22 tag on his last year of his deal. Galaxy have all 3 DP slots filled, so if they either have to sell someone and hope they can do it in the time of re-signing him before he has the summer to open up to sign those pre-contracts with other clubs. But with the trio of DPs they have, the Galaxy aren't going to do that. And then, Jovelich, prolific goal scorer in his time with the Galaxy, he deserves to stay in the league and he deserves a DP contract. And it's great to see this rule where a team, because no matter how much allocation money a team can't afford to get someone like that over the line. And now you're able to pay a fee. If he's going to get a DP contract, the transfer fee doesn't matter because the $4 million just added on. McGlynn is going to sit on the U22 spot, so similar thing. The 2 million doesn't account into the cap hit, so I like to see that players like that can stay in the league now, and it's pretty freaking awesome. Like I can't wait to see Jovic and Casey. Obviously, he's not going to be getting the production next to him at least to start. They have a guy coming in from La Liga 2 that's going to fill in that 10 role. McGlynn is kind of fitting into that lineup with that Herrera is leaving out of, and I think he can look fantastic in that free 8 role, the attacking 8, and I think he's going to fit really well in Ben Olsen's side.
So I have very, very strong opinions on both of these trades. As I told Russell earlier, I'm going to start with the good one because why not? I love the Jack McGlynn trade. I know, yeah, a lot of people didn't see that coming. I love the Jack McGlynn trade. I think that this is one of the few trades that this is a win for both teams as well as the player. If you look at Jack McGlynn is like statistically speaking, he is the best passer in the league, and it's not close. Like it's just not. When you look at the advanced stats, it's Jack McGlynn, then everyone else is several bars underneath. The guy's an elite level passer. That's about it. He is very slow, and his defense is slightly above non-existent. It just is not his game. Right now, he can see the game. Like his vision is almost unmatched in the league. Right? I mean, he's pinging balls, has a great shot, this and that, but that doesn't fit with the Philadelphia Union. The Philadelphia Union, especially, the reason why they got rid of Jim Curtin and they brought in oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the Bradley Carnell? The reason they're bringing him in is they're going to a full Gegen pressing thing. We are going to be high tempo. We are going to press the snot out of you until you cry uncle, right? And that is not what Jack McGlynn does, right? And they were struggling last year with that, with having, do you play Jack McGlynn? Because Quinn Sullivan on the other side of the diamond there, not exactly doing a whole ton defensively. Alejandro Bedoya's aging. He can only do so much. So they're kind of going back, and they were going back and forth with Leon Flock and or maybe Leon Flatch, whatever, and then Jack McGlynn. And so and what is Houston? If you look at the numbers, Houston is the slowest and most possession-based team in MLS. They have the slowest buildup. And this is perfect for Jack McGlynn. Like it's not going to be quick, high tempo. And I love it. And again, as a guy, based in Dallas, like I grew up, like I was just, it was ingrained in me to hate the Houston Dynamo. It's just like part of the thing. But it kind of puts me to think because like Jack McGlynn is one of my favorite players, and now he's like on my least favorite team. But no, I think again, this is a move that is a huge plus, because honestly, that was a reason why Jack McGlynn wasn't moving overseas. Was a lot of the European clubs were coming in and they were questioning his athleticism and his defensive ability. And so, yeah, like I said, I could go on for an hour about the greatness that is Jack McGlynn, but I have very strong opinions on the Jovic trade too, but I'll let other people get a word in here.
I'm just happy for Sporting KC. They had Adam Pulido for like 4 years. All he did was take Instagram pictures to show off his Prada, to show off his Balenciaga, to show off his Gucci Armani stuff, and that's all he did. Like, I don't know. He was sponsoring them instead of sponsoring the club. He's gone now, though. It's Chivas' problem now.
I am happy for SKC that they were able to ship off Alan Pulido and get in a striker who's probably going to be a little bit more available for them. What I am not happy with is the 4 million on Jovic. I think Jovic is a good striker in a system that created lots of chances, that had a lot of threat outside of him, with Pooch in the midfield, creating chances and helping with build-up, get the ball to the final third. You think of Peck on the right, Paintsel on the left, lots of speed in behind, putting in crosses, 1-2, but also having the ability to do 1-2s on the top of the box. And look, Jovic, obviously he's a quality player. I'm not saying he's not. Even DP is maybe fair in a LA Galaxy squad, because that's what the level that he was bringing. but he isn't someone, in my opinion, who's going to go to a new team and create chances for himself and totally set the roof on fire. He's someone who's going to need to be created for, I think, and he's going to need that chaos factor around him. And I know SKC just announced a new winger, I think, and a new attacking or a new maybe no attacking midfielder. Um, and so they're finally like doing stuff in the market. I think deadline day helps with that in the European market, which is where they were shopping from. And so it's Joveljic, it's the new midfielder, it's the new winger, and is that going to be enough? I don't know. The new winger, his stats look okay. Same with the midfielders, stats look okay. They don't look out of this world, and maybe it will translate to MLS where it'll be, their numbers will increase in MLS. We've seen that plenty of times, but we've also seen where the numbers translate as expected, and it's just kind of they're meh. They're just another inconsistent attacker in MLS, and so I'm eager to see how SKC does, but specifically with Joveljic as a striker, uh, it, it's better than Pulido. It's an upgrade there because he's actually going to be available. He's actually going to be able to run around and be a threat. But I don't think we're going to see the same Joveljic that we saw with LA Galaxy.
Yeah, so just to give some context to your numbers here, Gavin, I don't know if you even said any numbers, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but just to give some context to these players, Joveljic signed with LA Galaxy on a U22 contract. And so he's gone from a U22 contract at Galaxy, where I think that is an ideal U22 hit. If you look at what he was producing, especially last season,
Yep.
phenomenal for a U22 contract. Now he's a designated player. And that, I think you're paying a little bit extra in this case to kind of justify that he's a known quantity in the league. But what worries me is he designated player quality?
It's good negotiation by the Galaxy. Like the front office of the Galaxy did really good there. But all I'm gonna say on this is Peter Burmese, man, like this is it. Like, please, the front office, if you're listening, this is it. Like, after this season, if he can't take you guys far enough in the playoffs, let him go. There's times where you have to let people go. There's times where
David, Peter Vermees is the front office.
Yeah, he's
That's
never
the
going.
problem.
Yeah.
I don't know what secret he has on the ownership, but I want in. I want to be part of that too. Like, that man is like not moving from that head coaching position. But on the Galaxy side now, so that makes the Crew looking for a striker. So we got the Galaxy too looking for a striker now. Yes. Who do we got in the Galaxy right now that can replace?
They're gonna have to, and it's probably
Yeah.
gonna have to be on the U22 slot because they're pretty cap strung. Like Miguel Berry is their top striker in the depth chart right now, and that's not a side that looks like they're going to compete in CONCACAF or top four in the West. If that's without him, with Miguel Berry and without Puig for the entire regular season.
Before we go to the Galaxy, I really hate this deal. I know that the Galaxy were hamstrung for funds. I get it, right? Like when you that's just it's just the reality of the salary cap league. However, to answer, is Dejan Joveljic a DP? Yes, he is. If you look at his numbers, he had me look at my list here. He was fourth in expected goals last year. That right there is DP quality, right? You're getting that. Here's what makes no sense to me at all, and why I'm like, if you're a Sporting KC fan, you should be pulling your hair out right now. Dejan Joveljic and William Agada are the exact same player. All right. If you look at them, matter of fact, Dejan Joveljic was fourth in XG. Willie Agada was sixth. You went and got a player in a position that you did not need when you were one of the worst teams in the league last year. And I guess they must be really high on on this Russian guy coming in. I am not, playing out. I mean, that's the only other guy, unless they're going to move Tommy out on the wing, which he's been way more valuable as a midfielder. I think he and Jake Davis are wonderful midfield combo. But if you're going to move Tommy out, then you have a glaring hole in midfield. So I don't know what they're doing. Why? Again, I think that Dejan Joveljic is a great player in this league, right? Like, he is absolutely DP. But I mean, if you look at a lot of the underlying numbers, William Agata is a better player. William Agata, like, I would say that Joveljic probably he performs at his XG, whereas Agata underperformed last year, but that's the first time in his career that he underperformed. You went with, again, in a salary cap league, limited resources, and you went and got basically a duplicate of the exact same player, and it makes no sense to me. And I guess I get, maybe you're just like, hey, we'll get two of them and just figure it out later. But like, figure it out later is kind of the thing for someone who doesn't really want to actually figure it out. They want to put it off on someone else, because let's just be real, Peter Vermees is not going to play with two strikers. So I don't know what they're doing, unless this just proves that they don't see they don't think that William Agata is good enough. They don't see him in that. Every single analyst and all the analytic darlings are all wrong. I mean, Agata is absolutely, the analytics darling. Like, he's the one that all the numbers point to, that this guy is way above. And it's actually kind of crazy, because, even I've got a couple friends that are Sporting KC guys, fans, and they were complaining about how, no, they should be playing Polito and not Agata. Statistically speaking, again, I was talking about American soccer analysis. They have the equivalent of like WAR for baseball. Alan Polito was the worst player in Major League Soccer last year. Literally, he was statistically the worst player. He hurt his team in every single category of the game. And so to actually to get out of that is a huge win. But to then go out and then get a duplicate of the same player is absolutely mind-boggling to me.
He was the worst player, but how many likes did an Instagram post get? That's the real question.
How do you compare against Messi for Instagram likes? That's what I want to know.
My thing with Joveljic and Agata is, I know Agata is on his last year of his deal at around 500K salary. So I'm like, is Agata going to want, obviously what you're saying, like, player per price, Agata is the better player. I wonder if they think Joveljic is the long-term answer, and is Agata now in the market? Are they going to try to get something in league on the last year of his deal? I don't know if there's a following move. Sporting KC's had a lot of out, not too much in, so I don't know if they want to continue the outs. Maybe they'll just keep both and figure it out later. But yeah, like, curious to see how that works. But the Galaxy side of things, I'm curious to hear other opinions where they go, because, if they really want to get fun with it, maybe not fun for the Galaxy fans. I know a former Galaxy striker that's now available, that GSC Zardes. He had plenty of good moments there.
I was thinking of him. I was thinking of him. I was going to say him earlier, but I didn't want to. Yep. Glad we're on the same page, Bryce.
But like that might be like one of the he just got $1 million from Austin to not play for them anymore, so he's probably not worried about signing a contract. You probably get him on like supplemental spot, league minimum for a veteran, as add to Miguel Berry and add a U22 in that mix. Maybe that's the best option. I'm not sure, but it feels like maybe the most realistic to me.
What's Kai Kamara doing?
From the LA Galaxy, LAFC to.
Oh yeah, he's already there.
One club left out of his 32 that he's going through.
I mean, he's basically doing the cycle at this point.
Last I'll say on the Galaxy, I know Russell Masaba, the things we'll need to talk about. You got to think about it too, right? We all want Ricky Puig to be the face of the league after Messi leaves, and he's an excellent player. He's great. He's fun, etc. But you also got to take into consideration that small percent of what if he doesn't come back the same after his injury, right? Because we've seen it in the league, right? Joseph was one of them. Joseph was killing the league. He was the top scorer, MVP. Nobody could compete with him except Carlos Vela. And then the injury really messed him up. I'm not wishing and hoping the same for Ricky, because that doesn't, it doesn't help the league at all. But there's always that what if. Now, we don't have a striker we can depend on fully. What if Ricky doesn't come back to his full potential? That's something to take into consideration too if you're the Galaxy management and fan base.
I don't want to jump topics here too much, but I went down the rabbit hole of Sporting Kansas City's new signing, the Russian player, and I really am not convinced by it now that I've looked deeper into it. Yeah,
that's kind of what I was saying. It's just like,
aren't they both from the same club? Like, were they going after the attacking midfielder, and the other club was like, we'll take some money off if you take this player too?
The Russian signing we're talking about has never produced at a significant level in a league anywhere near comparable to MLS. And their most recent season was spent in the Greek Super League, where they were 12 appearances and 2 goals. I'm not...
That's just bad.
I'm not loving it.
That's just bad.
So what you're saying, he's going to be a best 11 player in 2025?
He's going to be a best 11 player for SKC.
I'm gonna go visit the SKC stadium this year and just take a sign that says, "Why, Peter? Why?" Hopefully he reads it. It's just,
they get enough for American football. That's all right.
Yeah. I'm with you on this one, Gavin. I'm not convinced by it. The history of the player is not super convincing. I mean,
so
2023, the guy was 5 goals in 30 appearances in the Israeli Premier League. And he's 3 goals in 31 appearances in the Turkish Super League. Turkish Super League compares actually fairly well to MLS. And you're telling me this is an attacking player that gave you 3 goals?
Question for all of you guys.
Jumping back to the Galaxy real quick. You guys were talking about striker. Joveljic was hurt a lot last year. He missed big chunks of time, and they played Paintsville up top. And Paintsville would kind of move around and this and that. But I think that we're forgetting that Diego Fagundes is a really good player who's been sitting on the bench for them. So there's a very real possibility that they just move Paintsville in at the striker position, and then Fagundes either drops out to the wing, or they have some options with that. I think that they'll need to go out and at least get a warm body. I too had been thinking about Giassi's artist. That just makes so much sense to me, especially in his career, being able to kind of end it there. I would love that so much. But yeah, I think that Diego Fagundes is kind of getting lost here, because he might be like the best bench player in MLS at this point. He would start on just about every other team.
Joveljic, guys, above 12 goals or below 12 goals for this season?
I'm taking the under. On SKC, I'm taking the under.
I think that's a good line.
That is a good line.
With injuries, I'm going to take the over, because it's really easy to buy yourself into every player, and it's easier to take the optimistic side in the offseason, because there's a lot of factors that come into play in 2025. But I'll take the over for now, but it's tougher than I thought when you first said it.
You've got Bo, you said something that has me thinking for a future episode. We should do a best 11 bench players.
Dude, I'm always down for a best 11 or a list. I am 100%.
Yeah. We talk a lot about star players in this league, but when have we given love to bench players? Guys who come off the bench, like Fagundes is a great shout. That's the type of guy that comes off a bench and you're just like, this is a player that contributes coming off the bench. Yuya Kubo coming off the bench, that's a solid contributor coming off the bench. David is the biggest Yuya Kubo fan that I know.
Did you mean Sergio Santos?
So, yeah, look, Sergio Santos is fine as a bench player. Yeah, he's as a striker bench player, I have no issues with Sergio Santos.
Is that because if he plays for longer than 20 minutes, his hamstrings just automatically shatter?
I'll have you know that I'm pretty sure I've seen him get injured in about 8 minutes on his hamstrings before. So I don't want to commit to that 20.
Julian Gressel makes that list too, probably.
insane that Julian Gressel is a bench player as well.
Didn't
Will
even
Fafa
play a
make the
minute in
list?
the playoffs last year.
Who the hell is Kubo?
Is Ryan Raposo? Ryan Raposo is, I guess, technically a starter for Vancouver, but
He's
would be
chilling.
a
He's in
bench.
China now or Japan. He went
No,
overseas and
Raposo.
signed.
Oh, I hate that. I wish we'd kept him in the league. He would have been
Yeah, I was
another
a big
like.
Raposo guy. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
I was very sad to see him go.
His advanced numbers are great. He can play in like 5 or 6 or 7 different positions, and he's just one of those guys that no one wants to give a pay raise to. So it sucks.
Man, that does suck. Because he is a player that deserved a pay raise. Like, he was on a very favorable contract. I can't believe no one wanted to give like $350 to this guy. Like, man, crazy.
Or the what was it? The rumor he was asking for 950,000 or something that he had to comment on.
Right. I don't know. I need to see the sources on that. I don't know if the player themselves is a valid source.
Speaking of moves, Orlando's made a couple moves, or they're finalizing a couple moves. Want to dive into that, or are we going a different direction?
I only had these two big topics, so if you want to dive into maybe just like a transfer roundup, just to talk other news, like I'm all about it. I have a very fun ending question for everyone, which I'll save until we're well and truly done.
Do you really want me to talk about Oscar Parejas right now?
You love Oscar Pereira. David, if there's any person in this world that I know you love more than Yuya Kubo, it's Oscar Pereira.
Can't wait to see him this year.
Well, let's hear it. David, what are your thoughts on Gavin's boys down there in Orlando?
Oh, I want to hear Gavin's thoughts because I know that Facundo leaving, and now you got some players coming in. Where are you putting your club right now, Gavin? Gavin, I put out a tweet asking our followers if they're happy so far this offseason compared to last season with what their club has done. Are you happy so far?
So far with what's been done, no, not much has been done. We got a young winger out of South America who does look promising on a under 22 deal, and so I'm excited to see him come into the team. And it was exciting to hear that we're going after an under 22 winger and we're going for a DP winger. So it's like we have young talent and we have experienced DP level talent coming in. We're linked with Marko Pasalic out of Croatia, I think. And I don't know a ton about the player. I haven't looked too much into him because we haven't actually signed him yet. Looks like we're going to, but all that I've read on him so far is that his numbers aren't great. They're actually a little bit less than Facundo Torres in terms of goal scoring. So it's a little bit of a downgrade there in terms of pure output, but his underlying shot numbers are actually higher than Facundo Torres's. So he shoots more, but he doesn't necessarily score more. So it's going to be interesting to see how that carries over from a playing perspective. He is a right winger, from my understanding, so it's kind of like for like on that side. And I'm just going to want someone who's a little bit more capable of taking his man on and being a little bit more creative than Facu Torres was. Facu Torres was definitely a goal scorer, definitely a huge player for Orlando City, but he wasn't someone who could do a step over and beat his man on the dribble. Now, I don't know if Pasalic is that guy or not, but I would love to have a player in that position who could do that. And then we are also linked with Atuesta, obviously the LAFC player, former LAFC, and he was on Houston most recently, right?
No, LAFC last
Atuesta?
year on loan from Palmeiras.
Oh, I thought for some reason I thought he went to Houston. Maybe he was linked there, but yeah, Atuesta, that would be a great signing. We, as I spoke to last episode, we lost Cartagena to a injury in our first preseason game. So we are desperately in need of a competent midfielder now, a starting caliber midfielder. And if we were to be able to get him, that would be fantastic. We don't have him locked down yet. I don't think we have an agreement. I think there's still some negotiations back and forth. I think we want a loan. I think Palmeiras want a permanent sale. and so maybe we'll do like loan with obligation or something weird like that. But we'll see. We'll see. But I'd be pretty happy with Atuesta should he come in. And that's really it around the transfers around Orlando City at the moment. I would think we would need another midfielder personally on top of Atuesta, but we'll see.
Atuesta is fantastic. Like, advanced numbers love him. I mean, he's been great in 2 stints for LAFC. The issue, is that final stage. If it's a loan, he's under that, like, he's well under the DP tag. You don't need to worry about, getting very funny with the cap, buying people down, making it work. If it's a sale with salary plus transfer, I think it gets really tricky, and that's why no MLS side can really get him done, because plenty of MLS sides, maybe even all, would love a player like Atuesta on their team. He can play as the 8 that he does best, but he can also just fit anywhere in the central midfield. So when they were linked, I don't know about the winger. I don't follow the Croatian league at all. So I can't comment on how he plays. But when I saw Atuesta linked, I was like, pretty jealous. Like, that's a player that anyone would be happy with, I think.
Him and Araujo in defensive midfield. Oh, I sign me up. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested on the Atuesta deal because he was not particularly great last year. Like, especially if it ends up becoming a DP deal, I feel like Orlando's really going to be hurting in that case. Okay, no, it's not that's good.
No, I don't. I was shaking my head because I don't want him to be a DP.
Right.
That would be bad in my opinion.
Command a DP type salary though, but like towards the end of the year, he wasn't even starting. They were playing Lewis O'Brien and Tillman over them. I mean, it has potential. Now I'm interested though because Cherundolo played him more as an 8 rather than a 6, and I feel like his first go around with LAFC, he was the best number 6 in the league. And so whereas last year he just didn't seem to quite have that same oomph that he had the first time around. So I would be interested to see how Pareja how he uses him if they do go that route. Again, if this is not a DP deal, I love it. It's a great swing. If it's a DP deal, that's risky.
I would be really surprised, Bo, if he didn't just slot him into the Cartagena role, which is left defensive mid and kind of helping and build up on that left hand side and like dropping into the defense to help be an extra guy to pass the ball around. And then, stepping into the upper middle third of the pitch, but never going too far into the final third and kind of just commanding that zone on the left side in a double pivot. That seems to be what's worked next to Cesar Araujo, who does the right-hand side for the most part, or the same thing. And I think Atuesta could do well there with that limited space in midfield. Definitely not a DP, though. I would be pretty disappointed in that. In fact, I don't think we have the space to do that. We have Luis Muriel, it would be Pasalic, and then we have Ojeda, so we have our 3 DPs.
They haven't used a buyout on Muriel yet. I'm kind of shocked that hasn't happened.
Me too.
That's a lot of money to buy out. What, he's on like $4 million a year for like 2 more. So obviously,
yeah. But what's worse, paying him or playing him?
Yeah, it's funny how owners are, especially now they get 2 buyouts. I'm like, if you're given 2, I'm pretty sure every MLS club every year could sell yourself on at least one player that deserves to be bought out. The issue is, will they do it?
I've said it for a long time. Unless you win MLS Cup, you should be using your buyout every single offseason, because you cannot tell me that you have, 28 players between your senior and supplemental rosters and reserve roster that are all on phenomenal contracts and producing to the exact level that you expect of them. You just can't. It's not happening.
I'm assuming you guys already talked about Latte Lath and...
No, not yet. Not yet. We can. Do you want to make that our last big topic? Do you?
Yeah. How have you guys not talked about the new record-breaking signing?
Well, it's not official yet. You can't say it's record breaking. It hasn't
Are
happened
you
yet.
making it
I
official,
just
Gavin?
checked.
Are you making it official on this podcast?
Yeah,
I
are you
mean, we've all
breaking the
seen
news?
the reporting. We all know it's official.
Are we beating Tom to it?
When Tom Bogert posts it, it's official.
Tom actually did update that it's complete today. A lot of people that I know around the club said it was going to be a Tuesday announcement, and then I heard that earlier in the day, and then Tom came out saying it was complete later this afternoon. So it's going to hit early tomorrow morning. But I have my opinions on Latte Loft. I kind of want to hear everyone's thoughts on not just that. I know Miguel Almiron we talked about, but officially Thursday is now back. Curious to hear the non-Atlanta takes on Atlanta's offseason so far.
Well, Gavin knows I'm not a big Atlanta fan. He's always criticized me for this. But Atlanta's must-watch soccer again. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that atmosphere. I'm excited for that fan base. It was good. Look, having Atlanta hot, playing great, playing beautiful soccer is good for the league. It was good when they were doing it. It's good for the league. Almiron's back. I'm glad he's back. He's always welcome back. That's what he did with the league. Spending wise, I keep saying this a lot, and I know people hate it, but Atlanta is the model people follow. Other clubs followed after they joined the league when it comes to spending. And they try to copy that, and they have. People can't say that other new clubs haven't tried to copy what Atlanta has done, and they keep breaking the records when it comes to buying PT, when it comes to buying Ezekiel Barco, when it comes to buying Almiron, when it comes to buying the new player they just got. They go out and they're not afraid to spend. And I keep saying this: we need more clubs to spend wisely, not spend on anyone and just give them $4 or $5 million to post on Instagram pictures. I keep going back to that. Wisely. I think. I'm excited to see it. I want to see how fast he adapts to Atlanta, Almiron. Right? I kind of felt bad seeing Almiron come back, and the only people that were still there were the cooks that he recognized from the past. Right? Like everyone else left. Guzan's still there. Right? He's the only one that's still there. But again, very excited for Atlanta. I know Gavin doesn't like when I praise Atlanta that much because he thinks I'm an Atlanta fan, but you guys know I'm a DC United fan. 4-time champs, CONCACAF champs, USA Open champs. Let me not keep going because I know you guys are not there yet when it comes to cups.
I'll go next.
I like this
Wow,
Latte
we
Loft.
all have thoughts.
I like this Latte Loft deal a lot. I think that. So first off, I mean the guy at the helm, Chris Henderson, incredible. The guy should pretty much, I think, get the benefit of the doubt on any signing. He very much fits their profile of a guy who is in his prime and has played in multiple leagues. He's played in Italy, Switzerland, and England. So the whole culture shock and adjusting to new team, new culture is going to be a really big deal. I think that this is a guy that Premier League teams were sniffing around and kicking the tires on. I think the only reason why he isn't in the Premier League is because of his age. At 26, he seems like he's a bit of a late bloomer. But 26 is, that's right around the prime age for strikers. If you look at most of the big time sales and all the people going in and out of the Premier League, it's all young players. Because unless you're United, City, PSG, if you're not a handful of clubs, everyone else in the world sells. If you're there's only 5 clubs in the world that don't worry about having to sell. So the only reason why Latte Loth is in the Premier League is because he's 26. And that other clubs aren't thinking, well, this guy can get better and we can resell him at 26. He's already at his prime. So Atlanta's getting a Premier League level striker to come to Atlanta here in MLS in their prime. This has a lot of potential. Especially with the existing framework for him to just kind of plug in place the players around him. I think this could be amazing. I know it's a league record fee. I've heard people complaining about it, but again, this is a Premier League level striker getting dropped in. Like, you're going to have to pay for that.
Gavin, you want to drop in next? I know you've got thoughts.
So Latte Loft, Almiron, I feel like your guys' attack is complete, Bryce. That would be my feeling. And midfield is pretty good. I feel like your defense is like too one or two injuries away from meltdown, the same it was last season. Just my outside opinion. And it feels like you guys are a little light in that area still, across the board, fullback and center back. And so I think you guys have the attack. And I think if you don't sign anybody else this offseason, and maybe you will, maybe you'll pick up a free agent in the back line somewhere. It feels like you're going to be carrying your defense through great attacking play. That's the feeling that I have heading into the next season, which is possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but that's where I see the hole in the squad now. I feel like Latte Loth is going to be a hit, and I think Almiron is going to do pretty well.
So we're talking just something that jumped out to me, right? You mentioned a reason he's not in the Premier League is because of age. Gentlemen, let me introduce you to a little story here. Born January 11th, 1987. Is a player some of you may recognize. His name is Jamie Vardy. Now, Jamie Vardy has won the Premier League and played a whole bunch of like 6th division and 5th division soccer. Jamie Vardy in the 2015 season, keep in mind 2015, do the math of if he was born in 87 and 2015, the man's like late 20s at this point, almost 30. In the 2015 season, Jamie Vardy played 36 Premier League matches and scored 24 goals. And his numbers have remained fairly impressive. The year after, he does 13. Okay. The year after, he does 20. The year after, 18, 23, 15, 15. Sometimes there's just players that bloom late. If Latte Loth is the next Jamie Vardy type talent, where all of a sudden it's like he's 26 and then he hits 27 and turns into that fine wine and comes to MLS and does 30 goals,
then he's gone the next year. So it's like,
yeah, and then he's gone the next year, right? Yeah, but I mean, it's not unprecedented. These things pop up from time to time. You know, these players just show up and are like, "Hey, wait a second, I'm actually really good at this game. I know how to put the ball in the back of the net every time I take a shot on goal." So the idea of a bunch of Premier League teams looking and being like, I don't know if we want to take that chance, like that gives me Jamie Vardy echoes. And that could be a great sign for Atlanta. I mean, to your point, this guy's got probably a higher starting point than Vardy too. He's got more experience, he's got more exposure. So we'll see.
All Jamie Vardy fans, please put all of your hate mail towards Russell. He does not speak
Yeah,
all
absolutely. You can
there's
you
only
can find
one
me,
Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at MLS Gamut. Go ahead, tag me there. But yeah, look, I think I'm optimistic for Atlanta. I think there are worse players that you could spend 20 plus million on. To be quite honest, I think this is as safe of a designated player swing as you can take, barring signing someone like, I don't know, Lionel Messi.
Yeah, you all make great points. Something that I want to tag into is Ronnie Dyla's counter press system that's going to be in place. When NYCFC was really, really good, it was when Tati Castellanos was not only scoring goals and moving off that back line, but when he was putting pressure on that back line as well and starting stuff. And Emmanuel Latte Loth, if you've watched his highlights, probably one of the fastest strikers I've seen. I know it's funny because if you go to FIFA, you see the 73 overall, and people are like, "Oh, we're spending 20 million on a 73 overall FIFA player." But if you look at the speed, he's a top 10 striker in speed in the game. So like obviously other people know his speed as well. He's super fast, and when you're looking at their setup and you're seeing Garth Lagerwey, Chris Henderson, very respected, you can see that this was their top target because he fits that final piece in that attack perfectly. You have Mateusz Klich, Bartosz Slisz kind of going to be playing a double pivot, probably Klich up the field a little bit more than Slisz, probably be the 6, Klich is the 8. Then you have Miranchuk, who was brought in to be the Almada replacement. Doesn't need the ball as much, but he's really, really good at through balls, those diagonal balls out to the wings. You have Saba, who's one of the fastest players in the league. Miguel Almiron is going to be on the other side. Super, super fast. We know how he can take defenders on one-on-one in the league. And then you add Latte Lath, who's super fast. And just thinking about having those three running at defenses all day sounds like a nightmare. I just think it fits perfectly. And when people are profiling players, I've seen a lot of arguments saying he's not worth the money, which I always argue back saying it doesn't matter once you hit past the DP threshold. So if he's your target, it doesn't matter 10 million, 20 million. Arthur Blank doesn't care because it isn't even his money. They just sold 4 players in the past 2 windows for 50 million. So they have that money to spend, even not even in the pocket. So if he's your number one target and he fits the system, it doesn't matter if transfer market says he's 10 million. It doesn't matter that he's a championship player. Premier League clubs, like Bo was saying, we're calling for him. Ipswich on deadline day in the summer offered £20 million for him, which is more upfront than Atlanta's offering. But Burrow said they didn't have time for a replacement, so they wanted to keep him through. And just was a really cool opportunity to bring him in. They sold him on the project. It's because you're at 26. He's probably hoping for that 30-goal season where he can go right back. And if he's going back, he's not going to an Ipswich side that can't match the salary, that relegation fighting side. If he's going back, he's going to go for that top half in the top 5 league, similar to what Cucho just left for. So it seems like a great spot for him. He's going to be making, I think, like 5 times the money he was making for Middlesbrough. I'm pretty excited about it. Gavin, I think you make good points about the defense. They were tied for 9th in goals against last year, and I think they're around the top 10 mark for expected goals against. Brad Guzan played fantastic the second half of the year. Brooks Lennon's out to start the year. I agree it's not there, but I think their main priority was get these DPs in because these are the people that win you games, and then we'll fill in the cracks as the windows go up to the season. So I don't think Atlanta's fighting for a shield because there's so many moving new parts that takes a while to connect, but I think their best soccer is going to come in that second half of the year when everything starts to come together.
So, gents, we're starting to run up on almost an hour and a half here. So I want to end this episode soon, and I want to end it on a trivia question. The Columbus Crew, with the transfer of Cucho, no longer are tied for first for the fewest off-season moves. The move of Cucho takes them to 8 moves in the offseason between players in and players out. What team with 7 moves currently leads for fewest off-season moves?
DC United.
It's a good one. Philadelphia.
We're saying even outs like free agents not coming back anymore, like that.
So things such as like if an option is declined and they weren't brought back, or if say they were traded away, or anything like that. It's someone no longer being on the roster, or someone who wasn't on the roster now being on the roster.
What moves have the Sounders make out of
Toronto.
Philly or Montreal?
Montreal's made a lot of moves. Toronto, I feel like that's not a team I've heard a lot of. I was going to say Dallas, but they signed like 6 homegrown, so that alone puts it up against.
Let us think about this, Russell.
I got my guess.
All right, Bryce, you take your guess because everyone else has done one.
I'm between 2, but I think because it hasn't happened yet, I was going to go Vancouver, but I'm holding off. I think it's Portland.
Portland is tied with Columbus Crew on 8. The correct answer with 7 moves is, you guys can do a mental drum roll as I
think I know
pull it up
who
here.
It is now.
St. Louis City.
I was gonna say St. Louis, and
obviously.
Yeah. So just a quick, little rundown here. So they've got 2 players who are officially in, and they have 5 players who are out. One of which was Kojima, who went in the expansion draft. But yeah, Columbus Crew, we're tied with them with Cucho going out. They are now sitting on 8. Portland Timbers sitting on 8 as well. I thought that's a very fun item there. I haven't counted, but Dallas is incredible in the number of moves that they have. I mean, it is almost taking up an entire page on my screen.
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't
No, I
love
was gonna
any
say
of these moves.
The St. Louis one makes a lot of sense because Fahnensteel, maybe Fahnenstein, I think it's Fahnensteel, their soccer guy, has made it been very vocal about all their moves come in the summer, which I think is ludicrous because how many summer moves come in midway through and then they hit the ground running and click. But I don't run a soccer club, so there's that.
Yeah, they had a big summer last summer.
Yeah.
So that made perfect sense.
It's when all the second Bundesliga players are out of contract. Of course, they have to wait for that.
Bo, I know you didn't want to talk about it, but just for reference purposes, the players in for Dallas, not even going through the names, are a MLS Next Pro signing, a free agent, a homegrown, super draft, purchase option from Independiente de Val, and then trade from Nashville, trade from Seattle, trade from Salt Lake. That is a list of mechanisms that do not include spending.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I'm not a fan of really any of the moves that they brought in. I mean, there's hope for the super draft pick maybe, and maybe the homegrown stuff, but like Anderson, Julio, Shaq Moore, not exactly lighting the world on fire.
Well, we'll talk about it more this week or next. I mean, we have a number of preview episodes that we've got to do, so we'll dive into each individual team, especially over these next few weeks. And hey, if there's a team that you really want to hear about that's not on our schedule yet, granted, you probably don't know it if you're a listener, whether or not it's on our schedule. But if there's a team you really want to hear about, be sure to reach out to us on social media at the MLS Now Podcast social media handle. Or if you cover a team or if you really care about a team and you want to talk to us, then feel free to get in touch with us there as well. I guess, guys, any final thoughts, any parting words? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Around the horn, David, got anything?
As always, I recommend a salad.
A salad.
Chicken Caesar salad from Longhorn, guys. Try it. No cheese. Try it.
Fair enough. Gavin, what about you?
Nothing more from me.
Bryce, words of wisdom?
Using it to say I'm quite curious to see Raheem Edwards fill the John Tolkien role at left back for the Red Bulls next year.
And Bo, take us home.
Yeah, shameless plug. Check my MLS Game It thing out on Blue Sky. I'm writing articles on the top 5 players at each position. I did goalkeepers, wingbacks, and then center back should drop here soon. So yeah, check that out if that interests you, because who doesn't love a list?
Absolutely. Well, folks, with that said, hey, we appreciate everyone who continues to listen to us. Make sure to follow us on MLS Now Podcast on all your social media. Folks, till next time.